Hi everyone, welcome to this short video where myself, Lewis and Enya are going to go through the questions that you helpfully submitted following our webinar recording at the beginning of this month. As we know, couldn't do the webinar live, so we did it as a video, and then we asked for you to send in your fantastic questions and that we would then go and answer them and create this video. So we're going to spend the next 10 minutes or so answering your questions, and hopefully we'll give you the answers that you need, and then we'll look forward to seeing you on the next webinar live on June the 1st at 3 p.m. UK time. So let's just get straight into it. So the first question we have here is this question from George. Can you have live polling and Q&A in the same session? Enya, is that possible?
Yes. Polls will just show in front of your Q&A. So for the participants on their phones or their devices, their Q&A will still be in the background. They just have to press the down arrow to remove the poll from the screen to be able to answer a question.
Cool. So if they're in, let's say if they're in the middle of answering a poll, writing out a question and then a poll comes up, what you're saying is the poll will appear, they'll answer the poll. When it goes away, they'll then go back to filling out their questions and they can just carry on as normal.
Yeah, exactly that. It's not going to remove their answer. They just have to press the down arrow or answer the poll and wait for the host to clear it off the screen.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. Great. Thank you. So I'll just hide that one out of the way. This next question was from Lucy Perry Griffiths. Thank you very much for this question. I use moderated Q&A as default because being able to have an additional moderator when I'm hosting a call for a huge audience is really useful. And it can't always be someone who has their own Vevox account. Is there a way of having a joined hosting without necessarily having moderation? So what I think you mean there is you basically just need somebody to come and support you on the session. They're not a user of Vevox. You just need a bit of help. And that is absolutely possible. And we've had a similar question from Morton. So I will try and answer both of them at the same sort of time because they are the same question. But I'm going to hide this question off just because I want to come out of here and actually show you how to do this. There's a couple of different ways. So if we exit full screen and we look back at the back end of our questions, even if somebody is not a Vevox user, you can share moderator access. So if we share the Q&A here with the moderation link, we can create a moderator link. This moderator link then can be accessible by everybody. You can put a passcode on if you want it to be nice and secure, but essentially you just copy this link. So if I copy that and I paste it in to my web browser here, it's going to then take me to this moderator view of the questions. So it's currently sort of unmoderated, but I've just got sort of back-end access to moderate these questions. So if I scroll through the list and I find Morton's question here, I can also, as an operator in the back end, go and moderate and move Morton's question to the archive as well. So that's now going to disappear from our present view board because I've archived that question. You can also do exactly the same view here if you were to turn moderation on. So you can see that there's a toggle here to turn moderation on. And now I've done that and pressed done. If I go to moderator view, I've now got these extra fields. So if we were having our Q&A being moderated, as we spoke about on the webinar, those questions would appear in needs review. And then as the backend moderator, I can move them to published. And that allows, Enya, for example, to carry on presenting the session whilst I then fiddle with the questions in the background. Enya, when we were running through these questions, you had a few more comments about this moderation. Do you want to just run through those as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So on the dashboard view, you can also click on the share button, which if Lewis will do for me now, you will get this option to create a new list. So you can share your Q&A list with the people who perhaps have been tagged in a question. You can share from all 4 of the different categories. You can sort by most liked, most liked or most recent. And you can, as I say, filter by only favorites, or if you've added tags to these questions, you can send, say, Lewis his specific list of questions from that session.
So I'm just going to add a label for Lewis there, and then you'll see what happens. So if I go to share and then create new, we'll choose a message list, so we'll choose published, and we want to filter. So now we've got that option to filter it by just Lewis's questions as well. And we can send this link to other people, right?
Yeah, you can, as same as with the moderation link, you can share that passcode if you want to, but you can share it with anyone that does or doesn't have a Vevox account. With this link, they won't be able to change the folders that the questions are appearing in, as with Lewis's moderation link. They'll just get like a read-only view.
So if we just assign, let's say, this question to Sue here, Sue's question here to Lewis, and we paste this in, what we can now see is we've just got that one question. If I was to send this across to Lewis to manage for his questions, we've just got that one question for him to answer, because that's what we've associated to him. If I was to then go and remove that label, there's no more questions on that view. Cool. Thanks, Enya. That's really helpful. So we'll go back to our questions. We'll go back to present view, and we'll move on to our next one. So this one here was from Sue Jones. So can I turn off Q&A for certain parts of a meeting, or do I need to start and stop a session each time I want to close Q&A? So I know we mentioned at the in the webinar that you could have Q&A open before your session. You might want to turn Q&A off before sort of you open it out, get all those questions in, turn it off maybe a few days before to give you time to review those questions without new ones coming in, and then carry on with your Q&A in the session. So again, I'm going to just quickly hide this question and show you how to do that. So we'll exit full screen. What we need to do is go over to settings, go over to features, and I'm going to turn moderation off as well, but we can turn off our Q&A board completely. So if I just turn it off and press save, we can now see that on our present view screen, Q&A is no longer turned on. So it's paused it for the time being. If I then go back to settings, go to features, turn Q&A back on again, we just go back to where we were, and those questions are still visible on the published screen. Next question we have is from Susan West. Can you expand any further on settings times to look at Q&A? Oh, sorry, and on setting times to look at Q&A and why this might be better. Very keen to understand more. Lewis, you were quite keen to take this one.
Yeah, sure. No, I think it's a really key point to have part of your meetings and your events to actually have those set times in there. I know we spoke about it in the webinar itself, but if you wanted me to explain a little bit more, it really is key to have these set times in place, because if you don't actually have Q&A bits on the agenda, then people will feel that they're not getting the answers to the questions that they might really need for the meeting itself. So it makes it a lot less counterproductive by not having these set times. Your agenda is going to be packed throughout your presentation or your meeting anyway, so you're going to have a lot of content that you're going to need to get through. And if you don't have these set times in there, you could essentially skip what is a really vital and important part of your meeting, which is the questions from the audience, right? Recommended to obviously open this up and let people know they have their questions right at the beginning, and then there's either 2 points that you can have these set times in the middle of your event, in the middle of your meeting. So you've got a load of questions that are built up, and this will stop you having a huge build up at the end if you do break up those two Q&A areas, for one right in the middle of your meeting and then one at the end as well. So that's just an evaluation of where all those questions are going to be answered. So if you do have two set times, very vital to have these in the agenda and set as to when you're going to be doing it. But the recommendations really are one at the end is vital. But if you wanted to break that up into two, have it in the middle as well.
Oh, awesome. I guess it stops it becoming a distraction as well, right? Because you haven't got the host worrying about what questions are coming in and trying to answer them as they're coming in and interrupting their flow. But also, if we take this a bit further and like we spoke about in the webinar, we then publish the questions at set times as well, it stops the Q&A board from becoming a distraction for the participants too, so they're more focused on what's happening. I think it's a really good idea. So we'll hide that one. We'll move on. This one is from Valerie H. So how do I share the various views with colleagues? Do I have to share the whole thing with a colleague, or can I share the specific part? So we've actually addressed this already. It's something that Enya took us through with the various different views that we can share. If you wanted to share, if you've got a colleague that has access to Vevox and you want to collaborate on the whole thing, then to be honest, my advice is go down that route, because if you're unwell or you get stuck in traffic or whatever it might be,
Or have a power cut.
or have a power cut, exactly, and you can't run that session, you've then got a safety net so somebody can run that session for you. If you haven't got colleagues that can do that, or you haven't got an additional user in your account, that's okay. You can still share the Q&A with them. But I would always recommend, if you have that option, share the whole thing. Next question is from Michael Burnap. Labels are mentioned a lot, and I'd love to know more. Do you have to set the labels up in advance, or can you add more on the day? Is it possible to then only show those labels on present view, or is it just for the back end? And yeah, again, I think this is one that you were keen to answer.
Absolutely, yeah. So you can set up your labels ahead of the day. So if, for instance, you knew that maybe 3 or 4 of your speakers were going to be getting a lot of the questions, you could set up the tags ahead of time to make that moderation really easy on the day. The labels don't show in the present view. They do obviously show in the back end that we've seen, but the only place you will see them in the present view is if you, Lewis, if you want to just come out of that for me and go up to the filters at the top of the screen, you can. If you go to filter, you'll see there the names of the filters. So just be cautious when you're giving your labels the names.
Awesome, thanks, Enya. So yeah, as I think we showed it a minute ago, didn't we, that we added a label live, sort of on the fly. So yeah, if we were then wanted to sort it by that label, we haven't got any more questions assigned to Lewis, so there's no questions on the board. But if we just get rid of that filter, we can come back to the main view. This next question was Jim Scott. I really like the idea of opening the Q&A session before it begins, but in some scenarios you want to prevent people from seeing those questions. Is it possible? That just goes back to, I think, my previous answer, where we showed that you can stop the Q&A board at any time. That means that you're then preventing those questions from coming in. You've kind of essentially paused Q&A, and then when the session actually begins properly, you can then reopen that Q&A. Second to last question here is from Jill J. Vevox Q&A, great for speak up culture. I give participants the choice whether to be anonymous or not. So this is more of a bit of feedback or idea. When we were looking through these questions, Lewis, you sort of had some thoughts on this one.
Yeah, I think it's a really great point in regards to speak up culture and giving people the option, the availability to either be anonymous or not. It's a very key point there, and it's great that Vevox can go for that. You know, if you wanted to just, for your questions that are coming in, to be anonymous, then you've got that option, but you've also got the option to have both. So people can put their names in, put their profiles in when they first join the Vevox session, and then choose whether they want their name to be displayed on the present view board or not. So if you go into the settings now, Lewis, we can go onto there on the identification tab. As you guys can see there, you have the profiles within the Q&A, giving the participants the choice whether they can have their name on there or not. And a really great point there was in regards to speak up culture, giving people options and giving people choice whether if they feel comfortable or not to do that.
Awesome, thanks, Lewis. I quite like the participants' choice. I think it puts the power in your participants' hands. Like, they're in control of how they want to be seen when they do those questions. So I think that's awesome. This last question as well, or this is another idea. I like to use the Q&A board to gather different places for our team lunches when we have them. The most liked restaurant will be where we eat. Again, I think this was something that you thought you had some good ideas on too.
This is fantastic, and as we spoke about within the webinar itself, using the Vevox Q&A board as an ideas generator, as an ideas board, rather than just Q&A for question and answers. So I touched upon this within the webinar itself, and this is a fantastic example here from Bill, using it as an ideas board essentially. So everyone putting their where their favorite places for lunch, and then just liking those ideas. Top one, eat out at. Fantastic. And you can do this not only for, you know, social things within the workplace, for lunches, but you can use this for different ideas within projects and cost association, cost budgeting for different projects and socials going forward. You know, the ideas are endless, and this is a fantastic example of that.
Yeah, awesome. I think we've definitely done something similar ourselves. But that's it for the questions that we received. Thank you ever so much again for sending in those questions. We have picked our winner. So well done to Lucy for winning that. We will be in touch with you to send out a little bit of Vevox swag for you. So again, thanks very much for watching the video and sending in your questions. And don't forget,
register for the next webinar that's at June the 1st at 3 p.m.
And it's all going to be about polling and thinking outside the box. Fingers crossed, no power cut, and we look forward to seeing you there. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and make sure you subscribe to our mailing list and our newsletter, and don't forget to like and hit the notification bell on this YouTube video, because we'll try and get a new video out every Wednesday. Thanks.
Thanks all.